The data space over the years has seen a number of roles emerge. Data analysts, data scientists, and data engineers are some of the most common roles one will hear in the data space. However, the clear distinction of these roles is most often difficult for people beginning in this space, making them lost in the process. In this episode, we sit with Derek Degbe, a wealth of experience in the data space, to help explain what each of these roles are and how one can get started. Enjoy today's episode. This episode is brought to you by Big Spark. Big Spark is the UK's fastest growing data solutions consultancy, translating your business needs into data architecture, strategy, and engineering. Together with their technical partners, they focus on swift and efficient business value delivery. Taking an innovative approach to every challenge, Big Spark is an agile team of over 100 world-class engineers and data scientists pushing the boundaries of what can be achieved with AI, data, software, cloud, and machine learning. To find out how Big Spark can ignite your data solution, visit us at www.bigspark.dev. Big Spark, igniting change through engineering. Hello and welcome to the Tech Stuff Podcast, where we navigate today's tech wave one electrifying conversation at a time. I am your host, Raymond Kluche, and co-hosting with me is my able McLean Ahin. And today we have an amazing guest. People call him Einstein because he's the Einstein,
Looks like Einstein.
literally, he's the OG, he's the good source, all right? And we have him on board to, talk about an interesting domain that both of us, in fact, the three of us all find ourselves in, and just trying to demystify a few of the misconceptions and all the blurry lines and try to make sure that young people or people who are yet to enter this space are well informed to proceed. So without further ado, I will just hand over to you, Derek. So Derek, just thank you so much for joining, and I'd like you to introduce yourself and give us a bit of a background, what you do, where you're from, where you live, the shebang. Let's go.
Great. Thanks so much, Raymond, for having me on this podcast. I think it's an amazing time that we meet here to discuss a few of the things that we find ourselves in. I come from a background of studying mathematics or actuarial science. I studied actuarial science at University of Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology between 2012 and 2016. And basically it was fundamentally an introduction to anything that has to do with mathematics, statistics, probability, and then the financial aspect of it, as well as computing for modeling. These obviously gave me a lot of insight into what really taking a career in any of these courses will be in the future. After I had my national service with SIC Insurance Company the following year, which was 2016 2017 service year. And just right after that, I had a chance to get back to school. This time around to read something in management. So I read an MBA in the same Care University in 2017 to 2019. This MBA, I decided to specialize in management information system, which gave me a lot of ideas about when it comes to working in tech, and then what it means to bridge the gap between technology and then users as well as understanding the environment on which these guys work. Throughout these times, I had a lot of time working around building the career as well as when I'm in the school. So obviously, things that will catapult my career, including speaking at conferences, organizing ones myself, and then making sure that I get a lot of opportunity to work on projects with companies at that time, just to make sure that I get the opportunity just as I'm looking for. I currently live in the UK, London to be precise, and I work as a data scientist. At some other point, I also work as a data engineer. All of these comes together. I'm sure it's one of the things that we'll be talking about throughout the conversation. So yeah, that is
Mm.
just about me.
Right, right, Charlie. This Charlie. actually, this elevator pitch there, it's um like hot sauce. So Charlie, organizing conferences and everything, Charlie, I cannot match up at all. Anyway, so people call you Einstein, I'm sure, because of the kind of domain you're in. But let's look at the different parts of a career you could have taken. Actuarial science, you could have worked in insurance, assurance, you could have gone down, become a professional actuary. You could have done all that and be earning some, quality money, because I know actuaries are cashing out, because risk is a huge thing for companies, and to have someone a top professional, it will be great. But then you go into tech, like, okay, why did you decide to narrow yourself in tech? Like, amongst all things, why did you not just go down a standard actuary path and chose to get into tech?
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I think university gives us a lot of opportunity to sort of explore. I mean, in the words of my lecturer that also named Derek, used to tell us most of the time when he had time to meet us that, it's only in the university that everybody you meet is a university student. Because when you go back home, you can walk about 100 meters away from where you live and you will definitely not find any university student around you. So that obviously tells you the kind of opportunities that you have when on the university campus. And so finding myself in Care University reading actuarial science, I had a blend of not just doing actuarial science. I had opportunity to be exposed to the university politics. I
Right,
had opportunity to serve as a chief of staff in one of the SRC administration. And even from that, I had opportunity to, like, a lot of the time, do more with grooming other people to also get an exposure. But in all of these, when I was doing, I got opportunity to also meet a lot of people from diverse background, those
mm,
typically doing tech. And I got a lot of times to, I'm very, very curious to know about a lot of things. So I get times to be sitting with many of these people just to be understand what they were doing and then how I could find myself. So even when I was reading when I was doing my national service, I was still having the time to do some programming on my own, just to be stay curious and also get to know what I could do with that from going forward. And of course, tech career itself came to me as something that a journey that I was taking on with a lot of risk because I mean, there wasn't so much information that I had at that time. There wasn't so much mentor that I could rely on to probably say that they are giving me the step by step approach as we are getting these days with a lot of young guys coming to us. I mean, those times we didn't have those. So, I mean, it was kind of a big challenge, even with a lot of friends that I had asking me a lot of questions about what exactly am I trying to do here. But I mean,
right,
like I said, the background that I had in actuarial science obviously gave me a lot of understanding about where I was going and why I decided to choose tech, not other than anything. Also, I mean, tech itself, like I said, when I read my MBA, specializing in information system, it gave me an understanding that technology does not stand alone. You have to
mm,
still work in a lot of industries, and obviously people who get the money are the people who have the knowledge about the field that they are finding themselves in. And so
right,
if I'm going to technically do it, then obviously I'll be able to still come back into this insurance companies,
right.
assurance, or all of that, and they'll still be making all the money that I wanted to make. So yeah, I think I still didn't deviate from that, but practically still trying to solve problems using technology.
Nice, nice. So Derek, the data scientist, Derek, also the data engineer, Derek, also the career developer, Derek, also the different roles that you have, head of and occupied. Now we want to zone into or start from, the back, like the fundamentals of the data space, and we're going to start with data analyst. So can you explain to us, or can you elaborate, what is a data analyst? Why the role data analyst?
Okay, so I think data analyst role it's fundamentally like where mostly a lot of things that had to do with working with data start from. I mean, because we mostly start working around data by just trying to pull a lot of some data what that I put in there, some spreadsheets like Excel, and then try to use that to sort of understand exactly what we are doing, probably in our company or something. And so an analyst is mostly focusing on just trying to use those sort of data to sort of find some insight and then try to see if we can just do some by quantifying those quantifiable information could lead to something that we looking at doing. So
Mm,
sometimes we use that to sort of forecast some sort of sales that we may be doing or some businesses that we find ourselves doing. At other times also, we just use that one just to be able to understand what we have done previously,
mm,
how it relates to the business that we are doing. And so um, analysts basically solve like a lot all these problems and then try to also sort of communicate them to stakeholders who are involved. So for a small business that has a lot of channels of which they receive maybe their inventory, once those goods are in their warehouse, and then they have them captured in the CSV or like those spreadsheets. Once they analyze them, they tend to also look at it from those that they purchased and then how much they are actually able to make, do some deductions and see what profit they are making, and
mm,
then relate it to the business itself in terms of the human resource, other resources that goes into production. For example, you have to pay for utilities, you have to pay for other services that all comes with power. So
right.
basically, that is what analysts try to do. The only distinction here is that some analysts may be using certain tools which other ones may not be using. So
Mm,
analysts still work with Excel.
mm,
When you use Microsoft Excel, you can still be able to do all the analysis that you want to do.
right.
Others have gone beyond that and using very advanced tools because sometimes the kind of stakeholders that you are working with may not necessarily be able to have themselves acquainted with what you are presenting to them probably on Excel, and some they want to see much more broader
Mm,
inside than what we are having. So, yeah,
mm,
these days we have other tools like Tableau,
mm,
Power BI, or even
mm,
Excel or Denodo that some companies actually use them. But I mean, like I
mm,
said, it all comes down to capabilities and all comes
right.
down to financial backing as well. Yeah.
Right. That makes sense. So analysts, trying to just gain some first-hand insight into the data, getting a better idea of what the data looks like. The distribution. All the kind of stuff. Like the typical stage of every data project.
Yeah.
Now, statistics or statistician
Yeah.
and data analyst, people
Yeah.
do say that data analysts are actually statisticians with a sprinkle of sauce or a sprinkle of some of some or some extra sauce, but
Yeah.
every data analyst is fundamentally a statistician.
Yeah.
If you can to some extent demystify both of them, why would someone still want to go to school and do statistics and want to become a statistician? Or has the role of a statistician unfortunately become obsolete and everyone is moving towards data analysts?
Okay. I think I mean people used to argue that in terms of tooling, that is where there's a distinction.
Mm,
But it also has to do with a lot more responsibilities. I mean, even in the real world that we find ourselves, we don't find out many companies employing statisticians because
yeah.
statisticians don't normally find themselves in this space. And so, um, just as I mentioned earlier, that data analysts are sort of focusing so much on business problems. I mean, anything
Mm,
that has to do with things that will give a guide to business decisions are what mostly data analysts focus on. And so, um, finding yourself in the space of working around structured data and then doing some visualizations and then some basic statistics analysis on that is what basically every analyst do. But I mean, on the other side, when someone works for, let's say, Ghana Statistical Service, as a
right.
statistician, I mean, that person is more inclined about all the statistical analysis, like doing the hypothesis testing, and then probably development some statistical terminologies or methodologies. And so they tend to be focusing so much on experiment. I mean, statistician does a lot of experimentation
Right.
rather than what data analysts because like I mentioned, data analyst is already working with some sort of data that is already structured, and then the only case here is that we are interested in making some business decisions and then grow from that. But statistician is
Mm,
going to be looking at a more of a lot of experimentations that will obviously lead to a development of a new statistical method. And so, in the Ghana Statistical Service, for example, over the past years, I mean, depending on our outcome and then the methodology that we use to, I mean, like say, conduct the census, which is done like every 10 years. I mean, every year there's a new technique added to that because that is what elaborately their responsibility is supposed to be. And so they come up with a lot of methodologies on how to go about that, do the kind of experiment that they conduct. But analysts don't have that kind of opportunity to do so because they mostly is focusing on what value or what business decision can we make from the structured data that we have in front of us. And that is what it exactly does. It doesn't mean that the job of a statistician will obviously become obsolete. I mean, what
mm,
has happened is that when someone reads statistics, I mean, you get introduced to almost every concept, every aspect of what working as a data professional means. So,
right.
I mean, these days people are even getting introduced to things around big data technologies and
Mm, mm,
many others that even exposes them to finding themselves in a lot of fields. And then you definitely even find a lot of, I mean, among a lot of our peers who actually read a master's degree in statistics and still find themselves working as analysts or even data scientists or data engineers. I mean,
mm,
these are
mm.
obviously because the kind of things that exposes you to. So it's just about the choice of thing that you want to do that finds yourself
Right.
in that space.
Right. Right. So when I was in school, I knew about statistics.
Yeah,
I never knew about data analyst until
yeah,
I left school. I went to do my master's.
yeah,
No, no, until I was about finishing.
yeah.
Then I was working under one professor. Then I hear this new thing, data science, and the news, the buzz. Data science is the sexiest job, and all that. Hey, okay, what is this job that is looking all hot? Like, what job is that?
Yeah.
Then went deeper and everything, and I eventually found myself reading data science. Before we delve into that, is data science still the sexiest job? Let's try and settle that. Is data science still the sexiest job in the world today?
Okay. Well, I think in the
Or,
in the
or, or, or wait, was data science ever the sexiest job? I think that's the better way to put it.
I mean people did have a lot of expectations and I mean a lot of
Mm,
glamour around what data scientists were supposed to do even the days when it
mm,
started having coming up. And if you look critically, you realize that the role itself had so many elements of data engineering, data analyst, statistician job, the role of a quant, and business analyst, and so many other aspects of it put together. So the data scientist became like a superman. And for many companies that had a lot of the foundation being set right, like they have the right data architecture working exclusively for them, those who have just migrated their data from probably on premise to the cloud, those who were probably moving from the batch probably to streaming because they've been able to find new data that they could collect, and so they have restructured their data modeling and all of that. I mean, those guys were getting a lot of ideas about how their businesses were growing. And so data scientists were much more important in those companies than companies who didn't have any of these foundations working rightly for them. So for companies like mostly the big tech companies, they normally have an idea about where they are going because they have
right.
like a structure. They had a very systematic, let's say, data strategy that they were following. And so, if you find yourself working in those companies at that time, data
Right.
science was a success job to you. And it's the challenge was that Many organizations who didn't have all of these structures decided to also delve into that. So companies lost a lot of money hiring data scientists from that time because they were not
Right.
getting any value for what they had been hired for. I mean, they
Right.
were some of them were just hired and fundamentally doing the job of an analyst.
Hello there, Tech Surfers. I have got some news for you. The Tech Surf podcast is now on Instagram and LinkedIn. Follow us on Instagram at the Tech Surf podcast and LinkedIn, the Tech Surf podcast, to stay up to date on new episodes and to get interactive. Don't forget to like, share, and send us feedback on your favorite episodes and the lessons you've learned. See you soon.
Some of them were
Right.
also hired fundamentally down trying to build a data architecture, but trying to build it like everything from scratch again. And so these were not
Right.
actually the role of a data scientist, but they had to be
Right.
forced to do that. So yeah,
Right.
the job part were still there, but like I
Right.
mentioned, it was just about the value you still be able to bring to the company
Right.
and the organization that you
Right.
found yourself in. Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah. Okay. It makes sense. It really makes sense. Can you just shed a bit of light on what a data scientist really does? Like, what is the day to day of a data scientist, as like a data scientist specifically, and maybe mirror that with a data analyst.
Right. So in my organization, as I was working in the bank, what was more important here was we had a team called Decision Science team,
Mm,
whose responsibility was more about the credit scoring. They build the credit scoring capabilities for all of our customers and even customers who will be coming on board by
mm,
working with data coming from our credit reference agencies and then trying to understand what actually should be able to put on our applications when someone want to apply for a credit card. And
right.
traditionally, they were all using SAS to do that. So what
Mm,
happens is that they write like all of those SAS codes just to be able to help them to extract all those data and then help it the software development team to build that kind of credit scoring capability so that our customers could actually use it to apply and all of that. Um, Out of this, other team members started experimenting around what we could do, especially around how should we, in terms of trying to draw an understanding about where our customers actually live within the UK, what
mm,
their personas are like. So we are building some sort of
mm,
a persona in terms of
mm,
segmenting our customers into different segments and understanding
mm,
what their needs are in terms of what
mm,
do they use the cards for. Some are using the card to build their credit score. Others are
mm,
using the card as what they spend on. So I mean, they use it to purchase a lot of goods all across all the grocery store. Some are also spending
right.
on entertainment and all of that. So that became the responsibility of the data science team. Then in terms of collection, people who use our credit card will now be given some threshold they are supposed to be paying. So for example, if your utilization is about 25%, that means that you still have some money on your card that we want you to be utilizing, like be
Mm,
using it. Because our case is that spend more. That's what we are
mm,
interested in. When you spend more,
mm,
it means that we are getting more value from our card. And so
right.
we encourage you to spend more by introducing what we call a lot of giveaways like cashbacks. Spend up to this and we give you a cashback. So we collect new data from all of these to build other personalization models. I
Mm,
mean,
mm,
knowing that in the UK, before you can send someone a marketing ad, meaning that when the
mm,
person was applying, that person should have probably stated that you can contact me by phone or by email.
mm,
So all of this
mm,
information were helping us to now know the kind of campaigns we are supposed to use on our
mm,
customers who we have as in existence and how much they were spending. Also, like I said, in the collection, we build what we call a forbearance recommendation model. These forbearance help
mm,
us to know what kind of solution should we give you if we realize that we have gone delinquent. If you go one delinquent, that means that for 1 month you didn't pay
mm,
your balance. If you go two payments down, 2 months, you are being delinquent for 3 months. That means that you probably
Mm.
be going default. So we'll build another
Right.
model for default. We build models for
Right.
delinquent. All of these is basically what a data scientist do. So data scientists
Right.
actually understand from what is already existing in their company
Mm.
and then try to use that to build more capabilities on top of that so that will bring more value. When we build all of these models, we're bringing a lot of value, about 20% increment in revenue and all of that. This is exactly what the data scientists will be doing. But analysts don't do
Mm.
that. Analyst
Mm.
capabilities is just like I said, what is already existing, like the kind of data that we
Mm.
already have now. Build something on like just analyze it for us. Just want to know in terms of how the data itself exists and then how we can bring it in a simpler way for us to view it. So that's why sometimes when you go for meetings, you're going to see analysts just presenting a report because just the report that we are interested in. You're not interested in you going back a lot of other insight that will help us to do. That is what will happen.
Right, right, right. Okay. You spoke about SaaS, and I'm just sure someone who is maybe new to the data space may not necessarily know about SaaS.
Yeah.
If you can just like in a minute just elaborate a little bit about what SaaS is.
Good. So in the UK, for example, analysts basically work with SAS. I mean, SAS is just also a statistical tool that you can actually use it. I mean, it's just like, let me say, you can actually code SAS code. So you can actually write codes in SAS. SAS Via is one of the tools within SAS. A lot of companies
Mm.
in the UK actually use SAS. So, mostly when you are looking for an analyst role, whether in the bank, whether in any insurance company or all of that. SaaS is the number one tool that should be on your CV.
Mm.
You should have been able
Mm.
to work with SaaS over years and then have that. The only thing that we are seeing these days is that everyone talks about Python, but SaaS is actually one of the oldest tool that companies actually buy. And it's an enterprise tool. So company has to actually pay for that. You can have a contract for about 2 years, renewable. You have opportunity to receive a lot of trainings from the SaaS company, and you also have opportunity to also learn about how to use them. So when you join an analyst team, you're also going to be learning about how to use the SaaS. If you are not, you probably in joining as a junior, you have opportunity to learn all of that. And you can, like I said, you can build all the models that you want to build. You can use it to build all the extractions that you want to do and any other thing that you want.
Right, right, right. That makes sense. Now, after a while, I saw machine learning engineer. I'm like, hey. But then we know that data science uses machine learning, but
Yeah,
then machine learning engineer has now gone into its own domain.
yeah.
Where is that sparking from? Like, what is the machine learning engineer?
Okay. So I mean, yeah, it looks very complimentary, but like I said, I mean, um, for the role itself as a data scientist, I mentioned earlier that you probably find yourself like doing a lot of work because there's analyst job that you are doing, there's a statistician job that you are doing, there is an data engineering job that you are doing because there wasn't so much clear distinctions on exactly what you were doing. And that's why even up to today, people still have that confusion around what you're doing. But the job market doesn't care. When they say they want a machine learning engineer, they expect you to have that kind of capabilities and all of that. Uh, when you build when you build models, I mean, a data scientist mostly ends up at just the model building and then try to put it in their business context. So when we build the forbearance recommendation model, our focus was not just on the performance metrics that we were seeing. Our focus was how to transition that into the business so that we understand that our roll rate, for example, was going up
Mm,
or going down.
right.
Number of subscriptions that we could get were going down or going up.
Mm,
Number of product that we could sell were going up or down. Like those were the most interesting part that we were interested in. And then in terms
mm,
of the revenue, the pound, that is what we're interested in. But when
mm,
you build a model like that, you want
mm,
to productionalize it because you want to automate
mm,
everything that came with it. Because the only thing that we have as a data scientist is that, I mean, for entire 6 months to 1 year, you probably could just build two models. Now, most of these models, like I mentioned, are we are just looking at it from the business context. So, in terms of the business,
Mm,
what value do we get from those that we have built? And then, in terms of moving on, these models, like I said, as a data scientist, you only have opportunity to probably collect new data and then retrain these models. And so you are not going to be building models like every day. And for a year or 6 months, you're probably just going to build about two models. The rest is just about going to be how you productionalize it and then follow the process with that. And this is where
mm,
we thought that the machine learning engineer has a lot of ideas about models in terms of how to build them and then how to put them into production and then how to do all of that aspect of software engineering on it. So a machine
mm,
learning
mm,
engineer comes here with a lot of software engineering practices because when you put
mm,
anything into production, like you are productioning a piece of a software, you're going to be thinking about continually how it's going to work in there. So your continuous integration and your continuous development aspects are all the good works that a machine learning engineer is supposed to come here and do. In terms of the tooling, you're also going to be looking at what kind of specific tool is a machine learning engineer going to be able to tell us that let's use ML flow. I don't think ML flow works best. So let's move everything to
mm,
Databricks. When you move everything to Databricks, what is the cost that comes with it? And what is the capability that also comes with it? When you move
mm,
everything to Azure, we are going to train and then put into production everything within the Azure ecosystem. But what does it mean on the business and what does it mean on the team that we actually be working with as well?
mm,
And so the entire
mm,
pipelining also comes with that aspect. And all of these also on monitoring, we are going to be monitoring the model. So from end to end, we can go from about 20 different tools, which will make it possible for us to actually say that we do have
mm,
models that are actually be working in production
mm,
and they actually
mm,
generalize well just
mm,
as we want
right.
it. That is what a machine learning engineer comes in. And the responsibility is a very
Mm,
huge one. It is still evolving and it will still take a lot of time. But people who have
mm,
the software engineering background will definitely be able to thrive very well working as a machine learning engineer. Yeah.
mm, mm,
Awesome. So I mean, you've thrown light on machine learning engineers and the role they play. You've hit on data analysts and data scientists.
Yeah.
And I mean, that actually takes me back to where we come from, right? For our audience, all of us in this call are Ghanaians, right?
Yeah.
So and it was sort of a shock when I moved from Ghana to the UK to
Yeah.
sort of pursue a role in data engineering.
Yeah.
Um, I realized that there are lots of data related roles here in the UK,
Yeah.
right, as opposed to Ghana, and there are lots of, how do I put it? It's not like in Ghana we don't generate enough data. We
Yeah.
also generate data, but why is it that people over here have there are lots of data roles? So that takes me to, or that begs this question. Let's say I'm a CEO of a company in Ghana, right? And you want to pitch to me why we need people who are in these kind of data roles, right?
Yeah.
So just tell me, why would a company need a data analyst or a data scientist or an ML engineer? Is it always necessary for a company to have these roles?
Okay, so I think for the good of the audience, probably those who find themselves in Ghana, um, I've come across a lot of this question like multiple times because just as you put a question, I mean, in the UK, you find a lot of data related roles. In Ghana, we could go the whole year and then only two ads looking for a data scientist or data engineer probably pops up in any of the job ads. or even on websites that are looking for those. And I go back to answer this question from the point where I said that during the days when the anything data started, there were a lot of companies that had fundamentally done the right thing, that they had a foundation. So, for example,
Mm,
they've already had an architecture at least about how we are collecting our data, and then when we collect the data, what we think that we could do with the data that we are collecting. So, like those basics were actually working. However, this has not been necessarily the case for many organizations that I have found myself in. Like I said, I had my national security with SIC. When we wanted any file, we still have to go into files and then probably be looking at that because our system didn't have an opportunity to have all of those files on them. So it means that we don't have fundamentally that aspect to say that we have data department. I mean, data itself is a department. It's a department shared resources with a measurable value. Like data
mm,
is supposed to be the golden thread that supports anything seamless, anything user centric journey that will allow us to have kind of have a self service wherever possible. Now, data
mm,
is supposed to support decision making at all levels, from the frontline delivery to policy making and even in governance across education sectors. However, when we have an accurate and then timely data, that is what is will be supporting that kind of accurate decision and timely decision that we want to make. And so, like in
mm,
corporate, all our all our corporate asset, data must be carefully managed and then maintained so that we have
mm,
that accuracy and reliability, right? Because
mm,
that is the foundation for any decision making that you're meant to make. So you need to have a clear visibility of where it is, how good it is, and the individual who owns it, even the department on its behalf. So we must be able to assess it where and when we need it. If, like I said, if we don't have these foundations yet, then it becomes very much difficult for us to say that we want to do anything data centric. That is why,
mm,
if you need to pitch this idea to a company, one of the few things that you should first be interested in is if you are interviewing for any company that want to hire you as a data professional, your question should be around their data governance or data strategy. If they have a data strategy, they will put in into that data strategy the kind of data they work with and then why they work with such data. When COVID came, a lot of models that were existing in businesses in corporate world totally deviated because these were data that were collected on the business or internal data that were companies were having. But companies that were able to respond quickly and still be able to remodel were companies that were relying on external data provided by a lot of business like data vendors like S&P companies, like those provided by Bloomberg, those provided by Fortune, those provided by Forbes, those provided by a lot of market leads. They provide very accurate information about what happened. And so a lot of big banks, like those big banks that we can call big banks, like the JPs, the cities, the SNBCs, like those were the kind of data they rely on to know the kind of project they are supposed to fund, the kind of investment that they are supposed to go in. And so if you fundamentally don't have this data strategy, then whenever you are hired into such a team, you're actually going to be wasting your time doing a lot of stuff. And then those stuff will never bring any value. So you're definitely going to be a doer, but your measurable impacts will not be there. So if you need to pitch to that, then the first element is that if you join such a company as a data scientist, for example, or analyst, for example, you should be wary and then ask that the company hires a data engineer. But the data engineer will come in with a lot more understanding and then help their business to actually model its business well, and then work very well with you, the data analyst, to now
right.
design what we call a data strategy or governance policy that will be within the right frameworks of the law, ensure that you collect the data that is more important, and then use it to solve the kind of problem that is supposed to be solved. That is
Mm.
fundamentally it. And I've been saying this because I think that a lot of the courses, the programs that everyone is reading now to become a data scientist and all of that actually don't focus on that. They are just focusing on technical skills. Yeah,
Mm.
that is okay, but that is
Mm.
not it.
Mm.
That's not just it. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
So, again, talking about these roles, and let's say there's someone out there ready to enter into the data space and, have a career in one of these data roles, right? So, what would you say are the core skills required for a data analyst, data scientist, and an engineer, data engineer, BI engineer? What are some of the core skills that you need to enter into this particular space?
Yeah, I mean, for the skills, like we have a lot of them, like a lot of them that we will list because I mean, anytime, anywhere, you still have people who like depend on their experience. I mean, when they are talking, I mean,
Mm.
probably if Raymond is talking to like a senior high school student today, you're going to mention about a lot of data tools
Right.
that they will
Yes.
never ever
Right.
hear in their life because they're
Right.
yeah. But I mean,
But let's get,
that is where
yeah,
the
let's get the fundamental, like, yeah, like
yes,
across
yes,
all of them,
that's
the
where the
basics. Yeah.
distinction comes in a lot. First of all, I know that we work across domains. And so the only point somebody could actually say that he want to start a career is mostly when they are in tertiary education. I mean, it's only in
Mm.
tertiary school that you can approach say that you want to pursue a career in a particular field. Those who don't find career even after tertiary school probably have a different, I mean, like path they belong to. But in the tertiary institution where you want to find a career, I mean, it is important that even before you decide which career you want to pursue, start looking at like I mean before you can even learn about what particular profession you want to pursue, start looking at that industry. If you want to go into, let's say, financial sector, now financial sector has a lot of um in companies that are working there. You have like the banks, we have insurance companies, we have now fintech companies, we have brokerage companies that are all work within this space. So for example, if you want to work in the bank, you understand what
Mm.
banks do. Some banks are into
Mm.
investment, some banks are into a lot of products. Find
Mm.
that niche that you want to. Then next, the very foundational thing that you want to do. You want to start as an analyst. So that means that your Microsoft Office suite don't have to leave you.
Mm.
Microsoft Office suite, I mean learning from Microsoft, using how to use Microsoft Word, how to use Microsoft Office, like Excel, how to use
Mm.
PowerPoint basically, and probably how to use Microsoft Access. And then on top of that,
Mm.
you can use Microsoft Project and learn how
Mm.
to use Microsoft Teams as well. These are the
Mm.
foundations that you need when you have been able to identify that you want to work as an analyst in an investment bank. These are the basic things that you start with. When you start
Mm.
with this, you know how to probably get a piece of data and then use it, query it, build something or do some quantitative analysis on it within Excel. That is nice. That's the first step you've
Mm.
taken. The next step,
Mm.
like I said, is that you want to use on top of that any open source tool that you can get for free. When you want to use Power BI, it's also free. So you learn how to use Power BI as that. Remember that all of that are building you to be that analyst that you want to be.
Mm.
Then
Mm.
on top of that, you can learn other tools including Tableau. So Tableau, Power
Mm.
BI, these two can be very work very well with you. Now, when you have this very solid foundation, then you are very good to go. I mean, any other tool doesn't come within that. But let's say you are somebody who love to build. You love to build, like very curious around that. That means that you'll be very good with software and then data engineering. So if that data
Mm.
engineering is what you're interested in more, then that means you need to learn
Mm.
your SQL and need to learn
Mm.
Python. If you can learn
Mm.
these two foundationally, then you'll be on your way to start as a data engineer. That way, you can try from that. But I wouldn't advise
Mm,
that you start as a data scientist because you will never be a data
mm,
scientist probably in your next 5, 10 years. You won't be.
mm, mm,
Well,
mm,
now
mm.
you're making it really feel scary, or it sounds scary.
Oh, no, no, it's not scary, but I think um the media has a way of
Yeah,
giving like buzzwords and
yeah,
hype, and then we'll get young people just get into the industry, and
yeah,
it's like yeah, 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 whatsoever. Yes, you could currently be working as you may have the role as a data scientist whatsoever, but the skill, how to be able to effect
yeah,
or great change, or like bring great
exactly.
insight into it, is a long term journey
It's a
for you
long
to
journey.
be able to like really say you're a data scientist.
Yeah,
Like so just trying to get people to understand that yes, you may do whatsoever and get it. Yes,
yeah,
you may have the basic skills, but the core skills that will make you into that
yeah,
kind of role, you should be targeting actively.
yeah,
So data engineering, for example, he mentioned having your SQL and having your Python in check, and then the data engineering framework. So you get to know about the ecosystem,
yeah,
Spark, Hadoop, use that to, build your core and
yeah,
everything. Then when it comes to the data science bit, where with your statistical
yeah,
background and you top it up with the model, then you grow from there. But don't just rush into
yeah.
it and just say, what, I'm going to do this and I'm going to become that Superman in this, because unfortunately, like, yes, it's good to have the exuberance, but let's be realistic. Let's be
Yeah,
realistic in that
and I
sense. And
mean,
yeah.
I said that because you will never be hired as a data scientist if you are not an experienced person. And an
I've
experienced person,
honestly true.
we're talking about
Honestly true.
we're talking about 5 to 10 years working experience.
That's very true.
And that way, like I said, data science is just about value creation. If
Mm,
that value cannot be realized during interviews with you, I mean, obviously that no, this guy is probably somebody who should be looking at something else, not a data science role. So that's why I stated that. And I think it's quite interesting that we not spend a lot of time doing the experiences bit. We spend a lot of
mm,
time learning like technical stuff, which are not
mm,
useful for some point. But I
mm,
mean that is
mm,
also another thing for another day. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So, I mean, you said you cannot be hired without experience. So how do you get this experience then? Because if you're talking about experience, does that mean experience working on your own personal projects, or experience working in a data related role? Because how then do I get the 5 years experience, the 10 year experience that you're expecting me to have if I'm if I don't get that role?
okay, so
Mm,
let me tell
Because
you about a story that just happened about a week ago. I mean, it's a fresh one. Um, I've applied for a role within another big bank. This time around, they were looking for, I mean, somebody to be an assistant vice president on their external data. So they call it like they buy a lot of external data, and they need you to just
mm,
come in here, know how to put them together, and then work very well with it. Now the requirements were very, very important requirement that I meet everything. And so it was very straightforward that the very moment I put my application in, it took them less than 2 days to move me to interview. So
mm,
I did an interview. First one, the head of the external data in the bank loved it. Good. I mean, you've been able to tell me everything that you do, project by project, impact by impact, and how you made it. That's nice. Move on to second stage. This time around, you're going to meet somebody who's also the head of who they're like the head of the whole data team. That has about
mm,
almost 200 people working in that data team. Very few very, I mean, the questions that were asked during that interview were just about two questions from him, and how I answer it is how you get a job. Very
mm,
fantastic. You did very well. But we wouldn't pick you because we found somebody who, one, had worked as an external data manager before and has used
mm,
closely the same tools that we use to work. So we are not picking you, but we are recommending you for another role within the same bank. This
mm,
is an important thing that happened in most interviews. In most interviews, you may see your capabilities that you did very well, but you don't think that this role you qualify for that.
Mm,
Now, remember that, like I mentioned, whatever career that you have built, there are times you are not going to work as a data scientist. There are times you are not going to
mm,
work as a data engineer. There are times you are not
mm,
your title is not going to be data analyst. Your title will be something different.
mm,
But it is the same kind of responsibilities that you're going to find yourself doing. That is what most traditional or big banks has. They don't have any of these titles that we do have. But when you see the roles and the responsibility, see that you are equally doing the same thing that you're doing. And so in Ghana, we have only one opportunity. After school, you do national service. And the mistake that we make during national service that we want to go to where we make money without thinking about where
mm,
we start building our career. So
mm,
where you find yourself working, anything that you are doing in there, make sure that those basics that I started learning, the Excel, on top of that, the Power BI, you can use it in there, even when no one within the organization has asked you, and you can still show it to your boss. By the time you're done, you have 1 year working experience in that organization. If you are very fortunate and you find yourself in a very big organization, like we look out for the oil
mm,
company that mostly they are targeting, you are good. If you find yourself in a financial company like GCB or Stanbic or any of these big banks in Ghana, totally 1 full year working experience plus the Excel that you learn, the Power BI that you learn, you almost have 2 years working experience. Here,
right,
you can now put yourself out there looking for roles in data analyst.
right,
You can do project equally on that. So because like
right,
why I'm saying this is because when you show this project to your boss within the organization, I will say this is what I did. He's going to give you feedback. His feedback
mm,
is going to help you on what you should learn next and how you should
mm,
use it. So you put that one also in practice, and that next time you come up with something better.
mm,
When you do that, it's going to also tell somebody about what you did. You may be
right,
fortunate. Somebody said, "Oh, I'm doing a project work. I probably need this
right,
kind of analysis to do."
right,
That also becomes an addition to that. So when you
right,
want to gather experience, best thing, use any simple medium that you have to do so.
mm,
I mean,
mm,
we on LinkedIn, we find a lot of people on LinkedIn, but assuming that your responsibility is that you are looking at a data analyst role, don't look at probably somebody who you connect with and hire you instantly. You can look for
mm,
about 10 people that you can do project and share with them. When you share with them, you
mm,
want feedback. When they give you feedback, it means that it's a whole portfolio project that you have done, of which you got feedback from those people in that
mm,
industry that you are interested
mm,
in working. Ask them to share those projects that you share with them, probably with their colleagues as well. If they
mm,
can share with their colleagues and their colleagues can also give you feedback, it means that you are taking a lot of note, and then this become your references as well. And so you can actually use them that I have Raymond who worked for Big Spark. I did a project I was able to share with me, and he shared with other colleagues who
mm,
also gave feedback. So you have that one also sitting on top of your CV. Remember that you are doing this because you want to eagerly find yourself in that space and get the kind of recommendations, get the kind of what experiences that you need. That's the way to go.
mm. I actually like that. That's actually a very good because unfortunately the tech space may be very saturated, you
Yeah,
understand me, and people may not necessarily hand roles to you,
yeah,
but you can put a strategy in place where you can connect with these people. It's just like open source, right?
yeah,
I think McLean, I don't know about you, Derek, but McLean has very good experience with open
yeah,
source. I'm yet to gather the courage to send my first hello world to Google, to send my first hello world to Google for them to accept it as open source.
yeah.
You get about more importantly is to leverage the people who are already in the space, and
Exactly.
sometimes these things may have to be pro bono
Yeah,
because you are what, building yourself,
yeah,
building your career, building your expertise,
yeah,
and as time goes on, the people you've worked on become your evangelists
yeah,
to other people, other projects, and then after a while you have more stuff in your GitHub,
Yeah.
not just for GitHub hype, like the debate that was going on Twitter sometime. Not because you want to see all the green around,
Yeah.
but because you've built a skill,
Exactly.
you've mastered a skill, and you have value. You may not have all the 10 years in one particular company,
Yeah.
but the little drops of experience from different people could amass the value you've
That's the
produced,
most
and I
important
believe
thing.
that is great. Derek, this has been very good. In your final words, just like in a minute or two, you have been in this space for quite a while, and there's a young person out there who is about starting, either in the UK. I was making fr-
Mhm.
I was making reference, sorry, I was making reference to Legon for for listeners who are not from Ghana. So Legon is a university. I was about to say the United States of America. Sorry, Legon is University of Ghana. That is where I had my undergrad education. We're talking to the a wide range of people from different parts of the world.
Yeah.
What is your best advice to someone who's about to enter into this data space, taking into account the current work climate?
Yeah.
Just in about a minute or two.
Well, thank you for this. I think one thing is don't expect too much.
Mm,
Um, yeah, because if you expect too much, you probably get disappointed, and then you might think that this is not the right field for you. I mean, almost every one of us in the space has sort of burning issues that we are dealing with, and I mean, sometimes it makes it quite interesting because I mean, you have a lot of people also looking at you who think that yeah, you are doing so great, and it means everything is all right in that space. But like I said, we don't have time. We don't have a lot of time to share our failures. So don't expect too much. Um, don't look at what others you think that others are doing, and then probably think that yeah, that's what you want to do.
mm,
I mean, like I said, the data space is a lot more interesting because each and every day you have an opportunity to explore new things. And these new things, if you are very creative, it leads you to, I mean, something very important, which could bring something uniquely that nobody knows about. I mean, when the field started, the noise were all about data sciences. I mean, it even took some time to actually reflect on data engineering and then talk about data machine learning engineering. Now we are looking at data AI engineers. Some are looking at analytics engineers. Some are looking at analysis translators and even analysts and all of that. Quantifier, I mean,
mm,
quant users and all of that. So
mm,
it means that things get broken down almost all the time, and people will have several new rules that will be springing up from here and there. What is more important is you have yourself all the time. When you have
mm.
yourself, that means you have your experience and you have your skill set always on the go. That
Right.
people can just grab it and then grow with it, or may want to compensate you for that based on the work that you do. So don't let the expectations be too much. Whatever you are learning now, it's something that's just serving as a foundation. It wouldn't be the same thing that you probably do when you are in the on the job, because on the job also comes with so many other learnings. I mean, if you ask me between education and on the job training, what happens? I mean, I know every job has learning and development courses that help their staff to probably stay on relevant to whatever new thing that are happening. So
Right.
they will be more important in there. So I mean, don't let those sort of things that you are just learning now be the only thing that you are looking at. But try as much as possible. I mean, today we have a lot of industry experts, thanks to Raymond McLean and other people who are, I mean, join a lot of these UK-based companies and
Right.
American companies, other parts of Europe, even in America. I mean, these all of these people are helping to shape the way things used to be before. But like I
Right.
always say, opportunities are a lot more in our back homes or back home. The only thing that it is not helping it that we have not really found the environment conducive enough for many of these small companies to probably go ahead
Right.
and say that they want to hire data professionals. Once we
Right.
do that, I mean, we'll probably go home and then start working for this company. Yeah.
Right. Right. Well, Derek, thank you so much. I met you on social media. A friend told me about you. I met you and everything, and it's always just like it's always nice to talk to you. So thank you so much for making time to join the Tech Self podcast. I really appreciate it, and yeah, thank you very much for coming. We really enjoyed having you.
Right. Thanks so much for having me.
The world of data is ever evolving, and many roles are being birthed by the day. Regardless of the path you want to choose, make sure you are properly informed about what is required and be willing to put in the necessary work to increase your chances of success. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the TechSelf Podcast. See you in the next episode.